Last night on Raw, the atmosphere inside the arena was electric, but beneath the excitement lingered a heavy tension that no one could ignore. The WWE Universe was still reeling from the shocking betrayal that had unfolded just days earlier, a moment that shattered alliances, broke trust, and turned one of WWE's most dynamic factions against its own leader. Seth Rollins, the man who built his empire around the Vision, found himself standing in the ashes of his own creation. What once symbolized innovation and dominance had now collapsed under the weight of greed, ego, and manipulation. The aftermath of this betrayal sent shockwaves through the entire WWE landscape, leaving fans and superstars alike questioning what could possibly come next. Backstage, emotions ran high, and whispers spread like wildfire. Sources within the locker room reported seeing Seth Rollins in a state of visible frustration and fury. His usual composed, calculated demeanor was gone. Instead, he was pacing, shouting, and demanding answers from anyone who would listen. Moments later, Rollins was seen storming down the corridor toward one door few dare to approach, Roman Reigns' private locker room. The two men share a complicated history filled with triumph, betrayal, and brotherhood. Once the heartbeat of the Shield, they had walked through fire together, only to be torn apart by ambition and pride. But in that moment, Rollins wasn't a visionary or an architect. He was a desperate man searching for help from the one person he swore he'd never need again. Witnesses described the confrontation as tense and emotional. Rollins burst into Reigns' locker room, still clutching his ribs after being ambushed earlier in the night. The attack had been brutal. Bronson Reed, Braun Breaker, and Paul Heyman, three men who had once pledged loyalty to Rollins' vision, turned on him without hesitation. Reed's power, Breaker's intensity, and Heyman's cunning left Rollins beaten, humiliated, and alone. Covered in sweat and fury, Rollins reportedly locked eyes with Reigns and said through clenched teeth, "You owe me this one, brother." Those words hung in the air like a storm cloud. He wasn't asking as a rival, but as a brother, a man who once shared the ring, the blood, and the bond that made the Shield untouchable. Rollins hoped, maybe even believed, that the tribal chief would see the bigger picture, that perhaps there was still some unspoken loyalty left between them. But Roman Reigns, ever the stoic leader of his own empire, didn't flinch. According to multiple witnesses, Reigns stood up slowly, his expression unreadable. The silence was deafening before he finally responded with cold precision. "You made your bed, now lie in it." That single line crushed any remaining hope of reconciliation. Reigns made it clear that the days of unity were long gone. To him, Rollins was no longer a brother-in-arms, but just another man who had chosen his own path and now had to face the consequences. The tribal chief didn't even look back as he walked away, his aura commanding respect and finality. Those who saw it described the moment as chilling, a symbolic end to what little remained of the Shield's brotherhood. Once inseparable, now divided by pride and circumstance. After Reigns' departure, Rollins reportedly stood there in silence, eyes filled with a mix of anger and disbelief. The betrayal by his faction had already wounded him deeply, but the rejection from Reigns cut even deeper. For all his bravado and arrogance, it was clear that Rollins still carried fragments of that brotherly bond deep inside. But now, those fragments were shattered. Back in the locker room area, Paul Heyman was seen speaking in hushed tones with Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker, his signature smirk never fading. Insiders claim Heyman has been orchestrating this chaos from behind the scenes, manipulating both Reigns and Rollins to keep them divided. Heyman's history with the Shield runs deep. He's studied them, exploited their weaknesses, and used their rivalries to his advantage time and time again. To see Rollins broken, betrayed, and desperate might have been part of his plan all along. As the night unfolded, the tension backstage only grew. Rollins was later seen alone in a darkened hallway, his signature jacket draped over his shoulders, staring blankly into the distance. He didn't speak to anyone. No laughter, no smug remarks, just silence. It was a rare glimpse of vulnerability from a man who built his reputation on confidence and control. For years, Rollins called himself the visionary, the man who could see what others couldn't. But now, his vision was clouded, and his empire was crumbling around him. Meanwhile, Roman Reigns continued to carry himself like a king among warriors. The tribal chief made it known that he would not involve himself in anyone's war but his own. To Reigns, every man stands alone unless they can prove they belong by his side. The Shield may have been family once, but Reigns has evolved beyond sentimentality. His focus remains on dominance, legacy, and survival, principles that have kept him on top for years. For Rollins, this rejection could mark the beginning of a darker transformation. The betrayal by his inner circle and the cold shoulder from Reigns have pushed him to the edge. Those close to him say he's become more unpredictable, more dangerous, and more consumed by vengeance than ever before. The man who once spoke about revolutionizing WWE may now be on the verge of burning it down for real. Some speculate that Rollins will target each of his betrayers one by one, dismantling the empire he once built. Others believe he may align himself with unexpected allies, men and women who have also been wronged by Heyman's manipulations. One thing is certain, Seth Rollins is not a man who stays down for long. The pain he feels now will likely fuel the fire that drives his comeback. But what kind of man will emerge from those flames? A hero seeking redemption, or a villain craving revenge? As the WWE Universe debates, Heyman's influence continues to spread like poison. With Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker now seemingly under his control, the balance of power is shifting rapidly. Reigns may think he's above the chaos, but even he knows that Heyman's games have a way of pulling everyone back into the storm eventually. Behind every rivalry and betrayal in WWE, there's a deeper story, one that goes beyond titles and matches. For Rollins and Reigns, it's about legacy, brotherhood, and pride. The Shield's ghost still lingers in every arena, in every chant, in every memory of what once was. And while both men have carved their own paths, destiny has a way of bringing old brothers face to face once more, whether as allies or enemies. The next few weeks could determine the course of both their careers. Will Rollins find a way to rebuild and strike back? Will Reigns' empire remain untouched? Or will Heyman's manipulations finally tear down both of their worlds from the inside out? One thing is certain, the story is far from over. What happened on Raw wasn't just another backstage altercation, it was a turning point. A reminder that in WWE, alliances can crumble in a heartbeat, and trust is the rarest currency of all. Seth Rollins may have lost his vision, his allies, and his brother's support, but what remains is far more dangerous, a man with nothing left to lose. And when that man decides to fight back, the entire WWE Universe better be ready. Stay tuned for more backstage updates, because if last night was any indication, this war is just getting started, and the fallout why.